and then some of the logic behind how the charts are actually generated, sort of how things get organized.
Yep.
So it looks like we're live. So here I will get my screen up. This one. All right, we good? Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, so the one I mainly want to go over is this credentials access one. That was looking pretty rough last week. I tried to clean it up myself, but I still have the issue of everything kind of pointing into that one little blue block. Let's see, ADM graph.
Yeah. So if the defense in the blue block is connecting to a lot of attacks, which means your if this is blue, then the then of an attack is being listed in the when of this defense, then yeah, you'll have a bunch of arrows going in there. So if you can you point? Okay, so the defense.
Yeah, so this one matches up. So that defense, it matches up to, where is it? Yeah, this one. Attacker can access a user's account.
Yeah, so because
and then I did move it to a policy, which made the model look a little better.
Yeah,
I think it organized things a little bit more cleanly.
Yeah. So what's happening is that the result of a bunch of attacks is that they can access. That's the way you have designed your system, that a bunch of attacks, all of them are leading to a situation where attacker can access the account. Now, if you have a defense for that, naturally all of them are connecting up to this one blue box.
Yep, which is kind of the intention.
Yeah. So in that case, yes, you cannot avoid these lines because there is no cleaner way to really set them up, because in an actual scenario these red boxes can be connecting to other defenses also. So any kind of cleanup you try, you'll end up moving arrows into some other direction. So this should still be fine. But normally if you see this as a clutter and if it keeps happening everywhere, maybe you should replan your defenses and the result of an attack. Maybe rephrase the then statement to slightly differ between every attack, because getting access to an account is a very generic term.
Right. Okay, so
for example, instead of saying getting access, you can say that the attacker is able to say modify something in that account. When you say account, it's normally the account details. If it's a Google Drive, they can access Google Drive, they can access Gmail, stuff like that. So instead of putting a generic then statement, be very clear on what the attacker would like to do when they have that access. Then you can start seeing arrows not being connected to the same box, and then you can have defenses to deal with that.
Okay, yeah, that would definitely make the model look a bit better. Yeah. I kind of intended for this model to be pretty generic. But yeah, this one's more of like a practice, I guess. So I probably will be making a newer one.
So technically this is fine. Some of the examples I have in ADM tends to have a lot of arrows pointing in the same direction. So it's still fine. If somebody can read this diagram and not get confused which arrow connects to what, then you should still be fine.
Okay, well, that's good. It's good to know this isn't a complete mistake.
Yeah.
Just something you can be avoided by being a bit more specific. Okay.
Sometimes you just can't avoid many arrows, especially when you have edge security like firewalls or IDS. They are designed to block a lot of things, designed to deal with a lot of things. Like if you put something in front of Cloudflare, you'll suddenly see a use case where Cloudflare is solving a bunch of problems. Naturally in your diagram, you'll end up seeing a lot of arrows ending up in a Cloudflare defense. So it's still technically fine.
Okay. So that's good. And this would be something we want to put in policies, right? Just a very common defense that everything goes to.
Yeah.
Because
So
I noticed that when I had this just sort of out there as a regular defense, it was a lot more cluttered than what happened when I put it as a policy.
yeah. So the main intent to put it under policy is to show that this defense was implemented because the company policy said that it should be done. So if you don't have a policy in the company that points to such a defense or says that you need such a defense, putting it under policy is kind of misleading because you really can't point it back to some documentation.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So this is pretty hypothetical, but
Yeah.
that's good to know. You shouldn't put stuff in here just sort of because you feel like it.
So technically you can do that. Tool doesn't discriminate, but when you are explaining why it's under a policy, you don't have any material to justify.
Right. So it's definitely not intended what I
Mhm.
did here. Got it. Okay. So another thing I was wondering is there any way to influence the logic behind how it organizes everything in here? Like, say I just arbitrarily I wanted the phishing email little chain here to be on top. Is there any way to influence that?
You have to go modify the Graphis code.
Ah, okay. So if I were to open this up,
Yeah. So what you do basically is put hidden arrows between some of the boxes, and then the rendering will clean up itself. So currently, the reason why it's being ordered that way is some of the boxes that are part of the chain needs to be in the center because there are too many arrows going around. So Graphis has an algorithm that figures out how to vertically order them. So, and this algorithm has been there for decades, so nobody has touched it. Nobody really knows how to modify the algorithm itself, I think, because I haven't
got
seen
it.
people talk about it.
So it's not something I should try to play around with.
Yeah, unless you want to like include this in a presentation and really want a cleaner diagram, that's when you go touch the Graphis. And that's one of the reasons why it's generated as a Graphis code, because some people want to clean this up. So the typical trick is basically create arrows between these boxes and mark them as invisible. So if you scroll down to the end, I'll show you one example. So if you see A to reality, B to reality, it says style is invisible, right?
Ah, okay.
So actually, if you see from the legends to reality, there is actually arrows, but you don't see them.
All right. And
That's because
then
they are marked as invisible.
so these are all my arrows. So if I wanted to make
Let's say from the red box to one of the given statements, if you want.
yeah. So if I want to do like phishing email to implement spam filters, if we find that. Yeah, so here it's 65. If I wanted to make that invisible, copy that. Then it would just be that.
And then in square brackets, you
And I
say
could
style.
copy this and just put it right there.
Yeah, and don't put that L tail because that's specifically for reality. So you just have to copy the style part of it.
Okay, and then I'll just get
Remove.
rid of this.
Yeah. And remove the original arrow or comment it out because there are two arrows that you have now. One is a
Okay. So I could just put the style equals invis on the end of one of these then.
yes, you can do that.
Okay, I think that was 65.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
Mhm.
And it just kind of floats there. And if I do that to a couple of them, it'll reorganize itself, is what you're saying?
Yeah, so because there's an arrow, the order is still there. That's why the purple box comes after the red one in terms of columns.
Okay. Yeah, I did know. I think this did move a little bit when I commented this out.
Yeah, it moves vertically to make space or save space. Finally, it doesn't want to create a really wide diagram, so it'll kind of move the boxes closer to save some space, but you'll still the left to right ordering stays because there's an arrow, logically speaking. So for example, if you want to move the gray boxes above and the red boxes down, you may want to put arrows between the gray box and the red box for some reason, like from red box to all the three gray boxes. If you want to put an arrow,
So if I wanted to try and push this one
yeah,
into this column,
yeah,
I
something
could
like that.
connect it to one of these given statements.
Yeah, so from all the three given statements, if you have an outgoing arrow to the red box, then the red box gets moved to the right one step.
Okay, so attacker has access to a system. Oops. Come on. And this one is brute force account password. So let me find that. Oops.
Style equals invis. Now save it. It should re-render it for you. Sometimes it takes a little longer because it needs to move things around. So it's really dependent on the plugin.
Okay, yeah, it's still going.
Yeah. Sometimes what I do is if it takes a lot of time, close this window, reopen it,
Okay.
or just reload the Visual Studio uh, UI itself. There is a reload command, a reload window command that you can try sometimes.
Oh, no,
So
that's
just say reload window. Yeah,
it's
close
right
it.
here.
Yeah.
All right, then I gotta restart GraphViz, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
So that box still moved ahead. There is no extra connection between the gray box and the red one, but you see that it's kind of cleaned up.
Yep, it got pushed into the column with all these other attacks. Okay. So that looks good. That's more something to do once you've kind
Yeah.
of finished adding everything. If I were to do another ADM graph, it would just move it right back. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It would
Yeah. If you
reset
regenerate the
everything.
graph, it will move it back.
Okay. I figured, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good to know that I can kind of push things around that way.
Hmm.
But yeah, for organizing things, I guess vertically, you just kind of have to let GraphViz do its thing.
Yeah. That's the best solution because the algorithm figures out how many arrows are going from a box and then position it. Sometimes, if it's a tie, it'll keep switching it every time you regenerate. So the first generation you will have 1, 2, and 3. Second one will have 1, 3, and 2. Again, it will go back to 1, 2, and 3 every time you keep generating it.
Okay, so is there any best practice for how these should really look coming out? Because I know in this third column here,
Hmm.
we have a bit of a mess. A mix of attacks and then like secondary attacks and then a bunch of defenses for the first wave of attacks. Should I be using this to sort of push these out into the
Yeah,
last column?
yeah, that's probably the only solution you have
Okay.
because Graphis orders it in terms of its position in the sequence. See, if its position is 3, third column is where everything will end up. Doesn't matter whether it's an attack or a defense, and you really don't have control over that.
Yep. And then these two are out here because they also connect to some stuff in the third
Yeah,
column.
correct.
Got it. So if I wanted to make this look better, yeah, I would probably want to
Hmm.
go in after generating it and try to push a couple of these out.
Yeah.
Okay. At least I know how to do that now. That's good.
Hmm.
Because yeah, This would look a little funny in a document, even though it's almost square.
Yeah.
Almost. We're getting there.
Mhm.
Okay. Those were really my main questions. I don't want this to be too short of a stream. Are there any other best practices that I should be aware of for trying to generate these?
Um, for ADMs, there are just two best practices. Don't start it with the I or V, basically, because, and it's all documented in the repository. Basically, say using I or V in an attack means different than when you use it in a defense.
Right. Yeah, that would look really funny if you
Yeah.
just sort of looked at this and it's like, I brute force account password. Well, who am I?
Yeah. Are you an attacker or a defender? We don't know.
Right.
Second is don't start your given, when, and then statements with a verb or an action word, because when you are copying it across blocks, sometimes it doesn't sound right. So,
Okay. I think I've been avoiding that for
yeah.
the most part.
Those are pretty much the best practices in terms of improving readability. Otherwise, the general thumb rule is keep your models small, because reading them becomes difficult once you cross like 150, 200 lines. So a
Yeah,
lot of,
this is my longest one, I think, and we're
Mhm.
not quite there yet. Oh, this one's getting to the 100-line mark, and the endpoint security one's pretty short. Okay, so I want to keep these pretty specific then
Mhm.
to just one service, and then I can tie everything together using ADSM.
Yes. Even without ADSM, if you just give it the directory, it's going to anyway generate all of them into a single diagram.
Okay.
So by keeping your model short in the code, it's much easier to for me to just read the code and not really depend on the diagram, because switching between diagram and code becomes cumbersome beyond a certain point.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Like, I was looking at my diagram trying to figure out how to fix a few of these earlier, and yeah, having to scroll through
Yeah.
the code, it's a little hard to find things.
So my general thumb rule for any kind of programming language is you should be able to figure out the location in 2 pages. Like, I see it, my code in 2 pages. If I cannot find any link in 2 pages, it start affecting the readability.
Right, it's too long.
Yeah.
You should move some functions to like another file or something.
Yeah. Create smaller files with shorter model specifications, and that also makes sure the model is focused on a very specific topic. So then what happens is you have a bunch of models on different security topics for the same entity, and that gives you this flexibility of playing around on how you want to connect these models into a larger picture.
Okay, so yeah, this one is a little bit too broad then, I guess, just credential access as a whole.
Yeah, it may be, but it really depends on your situation. If you don't see any reason to break this up, then it's still okay to have this, because it's not too big. You probably don't have more than 20 boxes, I think, in this diagram, which is still okay for an engineer, security engineer who is reading it. But something like 50 boxes in a model, now that's where people will start complaining.
I guess this one's kind of right on the line of being almost too big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I added a few boxes to it earlier today, and I noticed that it's kind of turning into a little bit of a monster. Not quite yet though. So I guess what I'll start doing is sort of come up with a hypothetical application. I
Mhm.
kind of started doing that here with this test.sm spec I was working
Mhm.
on. I haven't really worked with ADSM very much. I just sort of wrote this, which is very similar to what you showed me last
Mhm.
week on the stream. And then, yeah, I just generated the report just to make sure everything was working. Yeah, one thing I did notice is that my VS Code, it doesn't really notice that this should be in YAML format
Um,
initially.
do you have Red Hat's YAML plugin or extension installed?
I think so. Let me double check. So it should just be YAML, right? And then yeah, so it did get installed. I was able to fix it by if you rename the.
Oh yeah, you're right. I completely
if you
forgot.
rename it to
Yeah.
YAML and then rename it back, it works.
Yeah. Sorry, I completely forgot about that. You need to
Oops.
update your VS Code config to say that SM spec is YAML.
Okay.
That
I
completely fell off.
barely know VS Code. Could you point
Yeah.
me out where I can find that?
So
Should be what?
again, command palette. If you go to command palette and say settings JSON. Yeah.
This one, default
Yep.
settings.
Yep. So give me a second. I'll give you the exact piece of.
Oh, that's a big file.
Yeah. So there, at the end, you can say workbench.editor associations or look for that if you have already. So just Control F, workbench.editor associations. Yep.
Okay.
So under that, you say star.sm spec colon.
Wait,
Yeah.
I'm read only.
Oh,
How can I tell it that I want to break something?
why is it read only? You should be able to do it. Open user settings. That's what we did, right?
I think so. I
Yeah.
did command palette and then preferences, open default settings.json.
So say open user settings, not default. My mistake. User settings JSON. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just close these not to make the mistake.
Yeah. So under that, you add workbench.editor associations.
Yeah, just the first one.
Yeah. Under that, you put
We're
quotes.
missing a comma. Hold up.
Yes. Star.sm spec.
Oops. SPEC.
Yeah, and colon YAML.
Just like that.
Yep. Save this.
Value is not expected. Is that something I can ignore, or did I mess something up?
Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one. It should have been files.associations, not workbench. I was looking at a bunch of my customizations and I picked the
I
wrong
think
one.
that's a lowercase a there.
Yeah.
They okay, that dealt with the.
Save it, reload window, and you should be fine.
Okay, there we go. Everything's in the right color.
Yeah, and now you see that under YAML language server on the top, on the command above
that
no,
I was quite confused. Like you sent me this and I pasted it in here, and it didn't know what to do, so I tried just renaming it to YAML, and fortunately that worked. That's how I added all of this. So I renamed it to YAML. I made all this, and then I renamed it back so that the ADM would look at it. Okay, that's good to fix that.
Yeah, I'll probably end up writing a VS Code extension to take care of all of this. So till then, this workaround is needed.
Okay, well, I'm set up now. I don't have to worry about it again. And then if anybody has that issue, I know how to help them now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess I don't really have any more questions to ask, at least for today.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think over the next week, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and beef this up, make a bit more limited ADMs for
Mm-hmm.
all the hypothetical components in here. And then, yeah, if just next week you could take a look at my ADSM and make sure I did everything right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be good. Is there anything you want to talk about today there, Rod?
No, I don't have anything on my end.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether I pointed it out in my last stream. Start with recommendations instead of putting ADMs first. Create your entities. Think of what recommendations you want to give them without even looking at attacks and defenses, like all your best practices around that technology that the entity is using. That way, you at least have some result that you can quickly share with your customer before you go deep into the attack and defense model.
Okay, yeah, I only added I think 1 or 2 for all these. Also for externals, is there any way you can connect them to each other or an internal entity, or are they just kind of there?
You can connect externals to internal entities. Between externals, it's not supported because it's out of scope for you. How external
Right.
entities
Okay.
talk to each other is normally out of
And
scope.
then you would do that in your flows, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I was a little confused about that when I was making it, but
Yeah.
it's good to know. I know we have an hour on the stream, but yeah, I'm kind of out of questions to ask. Is there? Oh, go ahead, Rod.
No, I don't have anything you want to ask. We don't have to keep it open for an hour unless Vinay, you had something you wanted to talk about.
I specifically don't have anything. I did create a custom GPT if you guys are really looking for it.
Yes.
So, but
Here, I can
it's
stop the
not
screen
perfect.
share if I'm going to pull it up.
Give me a second. My GPTs. So what it does is it's basically asks you to describe your problem and asks a few more questions. So give me a second. Let me just get the link to this. So this is the first one, which basically lets you plan at a architecture level so that you can generate your ADMs. So where it asks you for your problem statement and tries to see if you have missed something. If so, it'll recommend it, and if you ask it to include it, then it'll give you a list of recommendations to add to that. Then give me a second. There's one more that I'll share with you. Yeah. So this is the second one. So if you go to this attack defense model builder, it'll start. Give me a second. We can probably work through this in parallel. So I want ADM for a specific technology, or you can explain your situation or a design. And like if you want to share the screen, we can probably walk through it if you want.
I don't have Chat GPT. I don't have like a subscription for it.
Yeah.
I think you do, right, Rod?
I do. Yeah. Let me. I just need a second. I just want to make sure that I close all my windows that don't want to. Okay. Okay, I think I have everything closed, so I'll share my screen now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So, what I want to go to.
You can start with the ADM one.
Okay. Should I? Is it a GPT that I should click like explore GPTs or?
I have put it in the comments if you want. Like in the
Oh,
streaming,
okay.
I put the link to the GPT.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
So it should be actually it should show the icon and the name of the GPT. I'm not sure why it's not.
Let's try this. No.
Okay, try sending it a message like
Just try sending out a message.
yeah. Okay. It's still going to the default chat. It's not running your. Can you paste it again now on the browser and see if that works? Okay. Let's say, why don't you just give me a second? I'll just open that on my side too. That way we can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. It's taking time for you to load. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now you can explain your architecture, and it should start like walking you through it.
Monolithic Ruby app. AWS. Let's see.
Yeah. You can say which database technology you're using if you want.
RDS. Let's see. RDS Aurora. Let's see what else.
Probably this is a good enough start. Let's see what it says.
Okay.
So it tries to reinterpret it and basically asks you if it's right.
I'm running. We use standard. Can you confirm this is correct? Yes. I mean, I could provide more detail. So we
Yeah.
want to.
Either you can say yes or give more details. It'll try to figure out what's missing. Oh, okay. Yeah, analyzing missing parts. So it's basically identified three missing parts, but if you think there are additional missing parts you want to add, or you can like basically explain it to add more things, or just say yes for it to continue.
Let's get to continue.
So first, it what it does is among all the stride categories, it tries to see which stride categories are applicable. Many a times it just repeats the same thing, but once in a while it will skip one of them because they don't apply.
Hmm.
Again, you can say yes, and I don't know why it's trying to create an image, but let's see. Okay, forget it. Yeah. So basically, it's now listing specific topics under each entity. So what I'm not able to make it do is generate Markdown as a code block. Like whatever I've tried hasn't worked yet. So it's this one is still slightly under progress, but it generates enough information that you can get started on it. Yeah. So it's still generating the Markdown, and you can, let's say, copy it and put it into a Markdown file.
All right, I'm just gonna hit yes.
Yeah. The only thing currently is that it lists only one topic per category, which is truly not the case in real life.
Hmm.
So you may want to kind of continue chatting with it, saying, "Can you add more under this?" and so on.
Yeah. So as an example, let's say we we want to get more information about this, right?
Yeah.
Let's say for the rev, we could ask a question for
Yeah.
if we use Okta for authentication, how does what attacks or what threats are relevant? So you could spend the time asking it questions and filling in your report.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is nice.
So this is basically it complements ADSM. So if you see relevant attacks, basically in recommendations, you can say that for phishing attacks, do this. For session hijacking, do that. And then you can switch over to this other attack defense model builder, where you can ask it to start laying it out. So I've put a second link in the chat. So now you can say probably like build me an ADM for Okta phishing attack. So at this point, you can basically brainstorm with it, add more attacks and defenses, or if you just say continue or say yes.
Let's see, how about FA fatigue? Attack. Could you add this? Okay, say yes.
So this is where it's failing currently because it's not generating it as an ADM code. But if I kind of I'm strictly saying you are not following the ADM language, you're not following the rules, then it will kind of get back to you with the right one.
Hmm.
You can probably stop the generation and basically tell it that you were wrong. Oh, okay. Yeah.
And what should I, maybe go to regenerate, or when you say
Yeah.
wrong?
Please, you could just say, please regenerate using the ADM language. Because I have actually uploaded examples of ADMs that it should refer to. But for some reason, it's not picking it up. Yeah. Now it gets back to that. But what happens is that sometimes it may not follow the rules. So you have to again push it saying attack and defense is looking good, but you haven't followed the rules of connecting attacks and defenses. But the advantage with this GPT is that you can use it as a brainstorming tool and at least get your attack and defense blocks generated. And then you can go back and clean it up.
Yeah, this is good. It's really good.
Well, let's see if it's trying to map it to the rules also. Like it says analyzing. Yeah, so looks like it's regenerating some of it. You can probably copy this into the web tool that I have and see if it's working. So you don't even need to run VS Code at that time. Yeah, that's basically how it's doing it now.
You're just saying like take
Yeah,
this.
copy code. Yeah.
Let's say I just call. I'll just call it my monolithic.
Mm-hmm.
Monolithic web and services.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll paste it when I'll just delete these and paste it down at the bottom here.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully you have copied this if you're working on something because once you replace it, it won't come back.
Oh no, yeah, this is something I pasted in there. I was working on it local, and I just wanted to see how it would look like going back and forth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you just keep clicking copy code and keep pasting it, and basically it should get you some kind of a model in place. So now if you see, it's not really connecting it up because somehow it's not followed the rule. And that's where GPT is still kind of stuck because I have to probe it a few times to get the rule mapping right.
Mm.
But even otherwise, it's because probably it's assuming some of the when and then statements already exist, or the statements sound so similar that somehow it's assumed that they get connected.
This is still really good, though. I mean, it
Mhm.
gives you the when and then statements, and
Yeah,
then the analyst can take it a little further to the end. Yeah,
true.
yeah.
And then because it has so many given statements, sometimes it just has the same given statement rephrased differently. So you may want to fix that, put it under assumptions. All those cleanup it cannot do at this point.
Mm-hmm. No, this is awesome. Thank you. I'm definitely gonna bookmark these because it's a good start. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be a productivity booster for you, but it cannot like auto generate everything for you for sure.
Yeah. No, I think that's part of the effort behind this, right? Like the value in
Mhm.
doing this is like it gives you something to start talking about. Then you have like a work session with another analyst or with the engineering team and say, "Hey, this is what do you think about this? Let's talk about what this means." And then
Mhm.
let's connect all these together, and then visually they can look at it and say, "Oh yeah, I get it now."
Yeah.
Yeah. No, thank you. My next one, I'll go through this process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's pretty much all I had.
Okay. Um, there are two other persons on the call, Caden and William. They're both military interns. I don't know if you had met them, Vinay, but they are uh, very junior security analysts. So they're
Mhm.
looking at how to become security analysts in the future. So
Yeah. So the catch with any security professional is the knowledge, because tools are just tools. You give garbage to the tool gives you garbage back. So it's the knowledge that's going to really define your career. So my whole focus on these tools and GPTs is basically make it easier for us to get that knowledge in place. But if you're looking for specific books or sites that you want to go through for product security, let me know and I can probably give you some references.
thank you, Vinay. I think
Thank you, Vinay.
we're
I appreciate that.
one of the smartest people I know, next to one of the other smartest people I know, Joe. So, um, so uh, I'm good on my end. If you guys want to close the meeting out, we can. Joe and I could put together some thoughts for the next meeting, and then I know I'll have a little bit more time in the next week to start putting some effort toward preparation. So I'll have more questions myself.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right, Joe, you good on your end?
Yep.
Okay. Caden, William, thank you for joining. Also, Vinay, as always, thank you for sharing your time. All right, we'll
No
go ahead and
problem.
close the meeting out.
Yep.
Okay.
See
Okay.
you then.
Bye, everyone.